Hello and welcome to the show. This is a podcast about all of our favorite movies, remainders. My name is Patrick, and with me is the fantastic glasses today, Darren Verrell. How's it going, bud?
It's going great, Pat. I can't wait to talk about all of my daddy issues with you today on this episode featuring another great Clint Eastwood film called The Perfect World.
We are on, movie 2 of our Clint Eastwood double feature. I was so happy you wanted to cover a little bit of Clint Eastwood last week, and I figured we'd just keep that going because this is definitely one of my top 5 Eastwood movies. So we are going strong. Last week we covered Unforgiven, which was amazing to revisit. That's one that's definitely grown over the years for me. But this one goes back. This is probably my first Clint Eastwood movie that I ever saw. So definitely a lot to dig into. How's everything going on your end right now before we jump into the movie?
Everything is going terrific. I am just really glad that we got into some Clint Eastwood because, this was great. I had never seen this film before and I enjoyed it very much. And there's so much more to talk about as we get into it. But I don't know if you're out there listening, if you've seen it. So why don't we give them a little description of what this film is all about?
1993 is A Perfect World. I absolutely love it. When Butch, played by Costner, escapes from jail, he's left with no choice but to kidnap a young boy when his partner goes off the rails. As they travel across the country, an unlikely bond forms between Butch and the young boy, Philip. But at the same time, Red, played by Clint Eastwood, as you mentioned, who also directed this, is tasked with pursuing Butch to ensure the safety of the boy. However, Red knows that Butch has a heart of gold, and he has no choice in the end but to abide by the law and to protect the child. And this is a movie that explores a lot of themes of fatherhood and masculinity. Not necessarily things that are unfamiliar with Clint Eastwood, but definitely I think this is the one that is most nuanced, I think, especially in its portrayal of masculinity.
Yeah, and this movie is not something to watch after Unforgiven, which is the movie we covered last time, and think that it's going to kind of be similar. It's very different in a lot of ways, but then, as you mentioned, with the masculinity, it's very similar. Two kind of different movies, and I think two different reactions. From what I heard, this movie didn't do amazingly in America, even though it followed up Unforgiven. That's correct, right? This was the movie he did right after Unforgiven.
That's kind of why I thought it'd be a good pairing too with it. This is his immediate follow-up. He was basically making this while accepting all the Oscars for Unforgiven. And
which is crazy. You think that the next thing he does would be a no-brainer hit. You know, he was cleaning up, as we talked about last week with Unforgiven. It was such a huge success.
Yeah. But I mean, I don't know. It's hard to so it didn't do too well in America. I saw, like you said, it did really well overseas. I saw that I think a French film magazine, a pretty prominent one, actually named it the best movie of the year in 1993. So it obviously struck a chord overseas in different countries in Europe and whatnot. But for whatever reason here, it didn't bomb at the box office. It just, I think a lot of people were maybe confused at its more nuanced portrayal. I mean, if you have Unforgiven, you are maybe expecting a road trip movie that is a little bit more straightforward in terms of action and protagonist, because this was a movie where the protagonist is a criminal, and then Clint Eastwood, who's playing Red, the detective following him, he's kind of more of a reserved person who's almost looking to protect that criminal. So it's a lot of complex layers, and it's sometimes that doesn't automatically hit with people, but as I kind of mentioned, this movie has definitely found its audience. It kind of really quickly found its audience. So, like I said, I saw this a bunch as a child. It played on HBO endlessly. So that's kind of what I grew up watching it, because, back in the day, we're old, and we'll show our age. I'm of an age where television was all you had. You didn't have the internet. You didn't have a YouTube to watch stuff. So if you just had HBO, you were watching whatever they were playing. And this movie was playing a lot on HBO. So it's definitely one that I caught up a lot with, and which was why I was excited to revisit it now, because I hadn't really seen it. This is in 20 years. And thankfully, like it's even better than I remembered it.
Well, and then there's also the people that just didn't have cable at all. I had no cable.
True.
I didn't have HBO at all. So this makes sense why I had never seen it and you saw it a ton, because you actually had HBO and I didn't. And also to say that it didn't make a ton of money. I mean, $31 million, we're that's what I'm reading from the synopsis here on Wikipedia, that it grossed
like
31 million in, and it probably wasn't super expensive to make. I mean, like, as you mentioned, it's a road trip movie. And I would think that that's still a success for a lot of people. But again, in the shadow of a great, Oscar sweeping film like Unforgiven, it's not what I think was expected. And I love a road trip movie, and I know you do too. And this is a road trip movie of a different kind, but still a road trip movie for real.
I am always down for a road trip movie, but then also the other thing I was realizing that this is really like one of those movies that's just so bolstered by a lead performance that is fucking incredible. Kevin Costner, I mean, this is definitely my favorite performance for Kevin Costner, and probably my favorite film that he's in. I mean, I love JFK, love Untouchables, love plenty of the other movies, but like when it comes to like just a straight up like showcase performance like this, he's so fucking good in this movie. He's just effortlessly cool. That's something that movies need to bring back, by the way. Just characters that are cool for the sake of being cool.
Just like jeans and a white shirt, rolled up cigarettes in their sleeve. Yeah. The other thing about this film that I love is also just kind of, as we talked last time, or I think it was the movie before, we were just saying in Lebowski, there was all those great actors, and you're like, what was happening around that time? In the 90s, from the start of 1990 through, to 2000, a lot of these actors were just really busy. And so Laura Dern is in this film as well. And she was in another gigantic film of that same year. If I recall, I think 93 was the year of Jurassic Park. Right. So wow, to see her, and she must have been really busy. Her role isn't gigantic in this film, but it's a great role, and also a great role in sort of this masculine world of guys, that are. Yeah, we have Clint Eastwood, as you mentioned, who's he's a tough Texas guy, the tough Texas chief, and doesn't want to listen to any of his bosses, and he obviously thinks he knows it all. And they're all fighting to go after Kevin Costner, who clearly is a masculine character, but also, just like Unforgiven, he's not really like they play with the themes. Is he a bad guy, or is he a good guy? As the audience, you don't really have an answer for that, because you see this connection between the boy that he picks up, as you mentioned in the beginning. He has to take this boy as a hostage because they get into this situation where everybody is going to, they need to have somebody as a pawn in case the cops do catch them, so that they can use it as a bargaining chip. So they take this boy out of his home with his mother, who is, single mother. He doesn't have a father, the boy. And Kevin Costner sort of becomes this pseudo dad for him. And they both clearly don't have father figures in their lives. And it's an interesting way to tell a story that they're just forced with each other, two strangers, and they become friends.
Yeah. Yeah. So you learn, Butch, Kevin Costner, you learn, of his absent and abusive father. Like, he tells some stories just like relating to Philip as he's talking to him. Like, fathers are not always there. We kind of have that in common. But then, you learn that, so Red, they've actually crossed paths before. Red was the cop that actually put Butch in jail when he was a teenager. And it's kind of a coincidence that it ends up being that same person who's pursuing him now. And he has that speech where it's like, I know this kid had an abusive father. He stole a car, and he ends up pushing for like a longer jail sentence. Assuming that like the structure of prison would be better than lack of structure of living with an abusive father. And kind of with Red's character, you just see it unfolding. He's like realizing that no, it's like prison, people don't come out of prison really reformed in the way that they are intended to be. And it's more of a breaking down of a character, and he realizes that if I had not put Butch in that extended sequence or the extended prison sentence, probably would have been on a much better path in life and didn't lead down petty crime. Because again, he's just a petty criminal. But like I said, he has a heart of gold. He's like the most moral character like in the movie, to be honest. And it is that right. relationship with Philip that is, again, it just makes it such a unique story of having this protagonist and having this connection with this boy as he's kidnapping. So it's just all that, and then all that combined with, like I said, Costner's best performance. This is just why it's like endlessly rewatchable movie for me.
Yeah, there's this weird Stockholm syndrome that happens between these characters, and you know the chief, played by Clint Eastwood here, Red. He's not aware of any of this happening. You know, only us as the audience gets to see into the car as they go through and drive and grow this relationship. And it's like I said, it's about a Stockholm syndrome as it gets. You know, like you start to become friends and side with your kidnappers, but it's really because of this father like son relationship that they both have to each other, where I think the first thing that I started to witness as an audience member was the trust between the two of them, and how Kevin Costner's character really just says he lets the decisions be up to the kid and says, "Hey, you could come if you want, or you know, you don't have to." And he lets him make up his own mind, which I think is totally cool in the way that they're telling the story.
It gives him autonomy, which is something that Philip has never experienced before. He just has never had the structure of that father figure in his life, or anybody giving him reassurance, that's a huge part of it. It's like giving a child reassurance is like the most essential ingredient for any young person in the world. And when you're lacking that, you just kind of, you're able to go off the rails. And because of Butch's experience, and he basically sees himself in Philip. So that's why he's going to go out of the way to protect him at all costs, still giving him that autonomy, but like any instance, it obviously begins with his partner who is giving Philip a threat. And so he ends up killing his own partner pretty quickly, like within the first 30 minutes of the movies. And then you just see that unfold as he keeps on coming across borderline shitty fathers, and he sees his own experience and then the potential for Philip to experience that too. And that's why it leads him to, whenever he does have violence in himself, it like comes out in that and what pushes it out of him. And I think, go ahead.
Oh, no, I didn't really have anything to say. I think you're right about all of that. And I mean, switching back to the difference too for the character of Red and the cops that are chasing them, there's a bunch of people that are now, for the audience who hasn't seen this. And by the way, there are spoilers at the end of this film. So again, I always like to say at the beginning, you're going to want to press pause because we're going to talk about them. So in case you don't want to hear it right now, I'd say press pause.
I'm pretty sure we're always spoilers on this podcast, right? Would you agree with that? I mean,
especially if it's an older film. Yeah.
The only time I was ever reserved was witness for the prosecution. And I feel like just because that was such a mind-blowing turn.
Well, I know a lot of people, I think, follow this. We get a lot more of our views on YouTube. And so I don't know what they're searching for on YouTube more so. Like, is this like something where they're wanting to know a little bit about the movie and not wanting to get like the full synopsis? So sometimes I just like to say that just to make sure out there that we're going to tell you pretty much what happens in this film. So
to our conversations, I think, go without saying that there's heavy spoilers. So
yes,
always good at that.
Yes. So So in this story, there's going to be an ending where someone dies, and at the beginning, you don't really know how it's going to unfold or how that's going to happen. You think, in my opinion, it's going to be that they're going to get caught. As I'm watching it, I'm thinking like, at some point they're going to get caught. And in a way they do, but only because Butch finally gets shot and slowed down by the kid, which I think is like such a turn that I wasn't expecting, yeah, but perfect.
Well, yeah, I mean, we can talk about the group a little bit more. Is Bradley Whitford, who I had no idea it was him as a kid. He's basically the FBI agent that they get saddled with, Laura Dern and Clint Eastwood, they get saddled with. And what I still remember is kind of an asshole character as watching this kid, but then realizing that was Bradley Whitford the whole time was fantastic, because he plays a good shitheel in this movie for sure. And
he's the one who tries to have sex with Laura Dern, right?
I mean, that's kind of implied. It's pretty, that's again, it's definitely kind of more nuanced for Clint Eastwood, and I mean, he's definitely portrayed.
I mean, he wants to merge work and play, he says, basically. So that's I'm right. Assuming that means he wants to fuck her.
For sure.
Pardon my language out there. But yeah, he is a shithole. And of course, he's the one who ends up killing, finally, Butch, as we see later on. And, this is not like, again, they're all in this tin can sort of airstream, all of the cops, and they're all completely different. They all have different thoughts on how to catch Butch. Clint Eastwood is more like, I'm the one in charge. I'm going to be the one to make this decision. Laura Dern is like, I know him mentally. I know his story, fully. And then there's this guy. What's his name again? The character?
Bradley Whitford. I don't remember.
Yeah, I don't even know if they say his name. But anyway, he's the one who's just like, yeah, you guys say whatever you want. I'm really in control, and I'm going to shoot this motherfucker the first chance I get. So, it's kind of like a
Bobby Lee. Bobby Lee played by
Bobby
Bradley
Lee.
Whitford.
Yeah, very Texas
right.
Little airstream going down the road. I love the scene where that thing detaches from the car, and they're just like kind of flowing through the field, and then the car that was hitched to them is like on the side. That's such a great scene.
Yeah, I mean, and that kind of like stuff like that felt really, really old school. It was like, there was no purpose to that scene. So they're chasing him. They run past Butch and Buzz in the car. They realize him because Buzz or Philip, that's his moniker. So we go back and forth between those. He stole a Casper suit. Notice his face. So they turn around, start chasing him. They lose track of the air steam at the back, and they get rolled off into the woods. Doesn't really it's like this whole chase scene, and it's kind of goofy. Doesn't really have any purpose for the plot other than they realized they were chasing him and then they fell behind. And it's almost kind of like a slapstick. And that is just kind of like such an old school touch. I mean, Clint Eastwood is like, the end of the old school filmmaking vibe, and stuff like that. You don't get those in modern movies, that type of tone, I guess.
Totally. I think you just want to kind of get this like to the audience, give like a little bit of fun for like, they're the entertaining cat and mouse. Yeah. Kind of thing. Yeah.
It was like purely just like this goofy chase scene. And stuff like that is just much more rare these days, I guess.
And even in the character, like to write the characters and everything, for Eastwood to be the guy who, has no patience for any kind of authority above him or whatever. So they're like, oh, the governor, this is his airstream, and he, has the T-bone steaks in there, and they're like, don't eat the T-bone steaks. He's like, oh yeah, kind of hungry. And then it just fucking eats them. And then,
I sure do like tater tots.
I sure do like tater tots. And then, he's being told like the governor wants, and the whole time you never really see the governor. Maybe once or twice you see him where he's like trying to get reelected, so he takes the picture with the boy's mother who was kidnapped, and says that he's a
non-character.
But he's really serves the purpose to make Clint Eastwood look like, another like, I'm in charge, this is my show, and I don't care who else is involved type character. So I really like little things like that when writers do that. They write these little things and little characters just to support the strength of another character.
It's written by John John Lee
Hancock.
Hancock,
Yeah.
who directed The Founder, The Blind Side. So he went on. I mean, this was an early movie for him, so he definitely found a lot of success with those movies. And
I mean, The Blind Side, I don't, I know for sure that Sandra Bullock won an Oscar for that, right?
pretty sure I never saw it.
Yeah. I can't remember what else that did, but yeah, those are.
Does anybody still like The Blind Side? I know people liked it when it came out, but I don't think that's one that people look back on as.
Maybe we should watch it sometime because I've never seen it either.
Yeah, I mean, for the writing, I would watch it up, but I mean, yeah, that's the one that gets like, I don't know, just have the white woman save the whole day. So,
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
He directed The Rookie. Directed The Blind Side, yeah, The Founder, like I said, The Highwaymen. So he's definitely went on to a lot of stuff, but yeah, this was one of his first movies. So kind of maybe taking a step back, like, so originally this was a script that like Spielberg wanted to direct. He ended up not doing it because he was obviously busier with Jurassic Park, and that's actually how Laura Dern got attached into the movie because of already hadn't worked on Jurassic Park and him connecting Eastwood for her in this part, and kind of like going back to her character, like you're saying, like she's kind of the only one who actually has a nuance of like where they may be going and how to kind of approach trying to save the boy. And she obviously, as a woman in a position of power in the early 60s, kind of has to fight for like everything that she's claiming might be the right way to go about things.
And she's so good in roles like that too. I mean, even in playing the paleobotanist and in Jurassic Park, I mean, it's not as extreme as this, but yeah, she's like the woman in the man's field, right? And that's kind of the way that they're, and she's always like very scrappy, and she's able to hold her own, I guess. And yeah, it's interesting because she's pitted against a lot of men characters in all these films.
Yeah, and it's played with nuance. Like they address all that. They don't beat it to death or anything. But it's really well done because kind of that was the reality at the time, and
especially in the 60s.
Yeah, for sure. And so having them as that group, and then always like cutting back and forth, like the whole movie, it really is just a cutting back and forth between Red pursuing Butch and then Butch and Philip, and their scenes are just so well juxtaposed. I mean, like everything with Butch and Philip is always extremely nuanced and well done as you like watching them form the relationship. And then it comes back to the more procedural stuff with them pursuing it as the detective. So I really think that like it just that simple back and forth, like really pushes everything to the end when and that's the only scene they have together, Eastwood and Costner at the end. So
yeah, he's like, "Do I know you, friend?"
Right.
There's that little,
and they have that moment. It's like, yeah, he does know him. Costner doesn't know he knows him, but Red knows everything about him because of what he's done, and that's why he has like such an emotional pull with it. So,
all right. So here's the other thing. This film, and I'm not exactly sure. I'd have to look it up, but I'm almost sure because this film, I think, is playing 1 year before Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, starring Kevin Costner with a really shitty accent. So it's really, really strange. I never saw this film before.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing it for the first time, and I'm seeing Kevin Costner in a pretty, serious and dramatic role. And now I'm thinking about him then like going on to do Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. It's such a different world for him. But again, that's what I'm saying. These people were acting and they were in demand, and these were like the Bodyguard. What year was that? 95 or something? Like Costner is on a roll here in the 90s.
Yeah, man, I haven't thought about the Bodyguard in a long time.
I mean, but totally, right? I mean, he's killing it out there. And then I watched Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves on VHS probably 8,000 times. I mean, literally love that film.
Yeah, you brought that one up not that long ago. I forget how. I need to revisit it. I haven't seen that Robin Hood in a long time. I mean, yeah. So Dances with Wolves is 1990.
Yeah, what the fuck? I mean, and that's his
winning the
big.
best
He won
picture.
Best Picture. Yeah,
that's like what he's most famous for. Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves is 91, 2 years before this movie.
Wow.
And then Bodyguard is 92. Jurassic Park, obviously not Kevin Costner, but in 93. And then this is the end of 93, also 93. So yeah, he went Dens with Wolves, Robin Hood, Bodyguard, this. There's probably some other stuff in there, but those are like
and then he ventures into Waterworld,
which I also haven't seen since I was a kid. I remember being okay with it at the time.
Well, you may be the only one. I remember that movie bombing hard back in the day, and I have never seen it, so I can't really say.
Bomb doesn't necessarily mean bad, but it can be. But yeah, I mean, so where's JFK in there? That's 92 maybe?
Oh shit. Yeah, see what I mean?
91, also 91. So JFK and Robin Hood in 91 in the same year, the year after Dance with Wolves. And then Bodyguard 92, Perfect World 93, Wyatt Earp 94. And then Waterworld 95. So yeah.
Damn, Costner, what the fuck?
He definitely owned the early 90s for sure. So
wow. And dude, I love JFK. Are you kidding me? So many great
JFK. Oh my god.
Wait, when's Untouchables?
Sucks you in. 87. That's
holy shit.
That feels later. Yeah. I guess
it does feel later.
Yeah. I would have guessed like 89 or 90 with Untouchables, but
De Palma masterpiece.
Well, okay. So let's start with Untouchables. Untouchables 87, Bull Durham 88, Feel the Dreams 89.
Oh, get the fuck out of here.
He's got Revenge, which I've actually never seen. I know a lot of people like that one, and then Dance with Wolves in 90. So not only owning the early 90s, but also the late 80s. So
wow. And it's funny, I gotta say, like, I like Kevin Costner a lot, but I don't think I loved him back in the day. I was a huge fan. And I still am, of course, but I don't think the guy is like the best actor. Like, when you put up like great actors of our time, you're not looking at Kevin Costner, in my opinion. I mean, he is awesome. But somehow he became like he's serious business though, dude. I mean, Dances with Wolves is fucking awesome. And that guy had so much to do with that film, So you got to give credit to him, and you got to give credit to him for working his ass off. We just talked about like literally owning fucking late 80s through mid 90s. So maybe it was like sheer just being in great films too. I mean, all those films that you just mentioned are really good films. So
yeah. I don't know, man. Yeah, I mean, he's a great movie star actor. Like, I guess. I mean, he does have plenty of range, but he does play a lot of similar vibes in his characters, I'd say, which I don't necessarily think is a bad thing. But then especially, again, when you see a movie like this, A Perfect World, so like I said, even with all those, this is probably my favorite performance, like just straight up performance to watch him in. I mean, I love like JFK and a couple of those movies just as much, but straight up performances is like way up there. But again, like his ability to weave in and out of big budget projects. I mean, I think that's harder than people give him credit for. Like kind of like a Tom Cruise, like way where people have always said he is not that great of an actor, but I've always disagreed with that. I think most people kind of agree now, like he's a fucking great actor because he's more of a mainstream big budget movie maker.
I mean, well, but you could watch Cocktail and you can tell that the guy wasn't great back then. Risky Business, he wasn't great back then, but obviously good looking dude, and then grew into being great. I mean, I love Tom Cruise. I'm not knocking him, but I'm just saying his early films weren't like, he wasn't killing it in the acting department. Let's fucking cover Cocktail next time.
Born on the 4th of July. He's pretty fucking good in that. And that's an early ass movie in his.
It's been a while since I've seen that. So
he's really fucking good in that. Anyway, all we're saying is kind of like it's like a good actor and then a good actor in big budget mainstream movies. Those are kind of two different things. And it's pretty hard to constantly be good in these big budget movies when you're like the face of the movie. Movies like back then were sold on the actual actor. Like that just doesn't happen anymore. It's like we're like oh, like what, it doesn't even matter what the movie is. Kevin Costner's in it, we're gonna go see it. And like that's the selling point of it back in the day. That's no longer a thing. So
yeah, I guess like, maybe it stopped when like George Clooney stopped being like, in every movie, because you could be like, oh, I want to see the next George Clooney movie. And usually it was pretty good, but yeah, I can't say that about any actor right now,
That's IP ruined it basically, superheroes are the movie stars now, not the actual movie stars. So that's just kind of generally where the industry went.
I mean, totally. But then like we talked about with Terrifier and everything, it's like, you could still make something that's like fucking awesome like that and kill it at the box office. I don't know, I think it's really hard just to be like kick fucking ass through what's happening in the world right now. You just have to be like really, like whatever you do has to be really great to sift through the mess.
True. So Kevin Costner recently, I want to watch, I've never seen it, but his show Yellowstone is supposed to be awesome. And I haven't seen it. It's like 4 or 5 seasons in. I think it's over now, and people love that show. And so I'm pretty excited to actually check that out. So
he had some kind of like scheduling conflict and was written off the show. I guess it was last year. And then they like about a week ago, they just said that they killed off the character so that he had no like window of returning to the show. So there was some drama behind it, but yeah, like people loved him in it. That's
and I know Taylor Sheridan created that show. I think he was the showrunner. He wrote and directed Wind River, which I like a lot. He wrote Hell or High Water. So he's definitely got a good pedigree. So I'm excited for that. And then Costner also has, and I haven't seen this either, Horizon, the Western that just came out this year, actually.
Which again, it was like one he directed, right? Maybe he even wrote it. I'm not sure.
I'm pretty sure he helmed the whole thing.
And I think there's a part 2, right?
Yeah, it's part 2. I'm pretty sure he directed it. And and so I'm excited to catch up with all that stuff because rewatching this is definitely made me miss a lot more Kevin Costner at the time. So
yeah, right. Don't get me wrong. Like I'm saying, I like Kevin Costner. I'm just kind of like I'm never like blown away and like holy shit, like Kevin Costner is amazing. Like I might be with different actors and stuff like that.
I mean, what did you think of his performance in this movie? Like I said, like this is that type of.
Oh yeah, great. Yeah. No, don't get me wrong. Like I said, don't get me wrong. Great. It's also hard because I mentioned this movie last week when we were talking Eastwood, and I really think Eastwood's shit was like on fucking fire in the 2000s. 2003, if I'm not wrong, it was Mystic River, and Mystic River. I think you said you hadn't seen it, right?
No, I haven't seen it since the theaters. I definitely saw it, but it's
there's just more depth to it,
Yeah.
The characters all surrounding, growing up together. There's some tragedy between one of the characters and who they become when they get older, and then one of them has a daughter who dies. It's just, like the story is rich and it's real, and it's kind of like a murder whodunit because you don't really know. And Sean Penn is off his fucking ass in it. Like it's really good. So like I see that people have talked about, or at least it's being written in Wikipedia that this movie is seen nowadays as maybe one of Eastwood's best. And it's great and I really like it. But I'm talking like Mystic River is amazing, And
I would say, obviously, everybody has their own opinion of but I think a consensus in the last recently is more about it being one of his best underappreciated movies.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm sure there are. I would personally put Perfect World in one of my favorite Eastwood movies, but I think it's definitely gained a lot of traction in the last couple of years because of it just being an underrated movie, underappreciated. Like not enough people have seen it in his filmography, and it is one of his better ones. So it gaining traction like that, and obviously with Juror number 2, which I'm probably going to go see it this weekend. This is the new Clint Eastwood movie with Nicholas Hoult. Very excited to see it. Everybody's saying it's awesome. So very excited to check it out, and it's possibly going to be his last movie, and he's getting way up there. So it's potentially could be his last movie. And that's always a time for people to find the reappraisal of movies and filmographies and check out the ones that maybe didn't get enough attention in somebody's career when they're kind of when their career is kind of in the sunset phase. So I think
nice,
that's a big
why
part
we're
of it,
covering the, it's kind of, we kind of stumbled into the Eastwood film. I didn't pick that because he had a new movie coming out, on
for sure
the other week, but obviously I'm pretty sure that there was the placement of it on Max and streaming was probably, coinciding with him having a new movie out. I'm sure that has something to do with it. Because that's how I saw it. I was like, oh my God, I haven't seen it since I had that double disc, and then we covered it, and then it led way to this, which I'm glad, because I love this film and I had not seen it. Like a couple other movies I hadn't seen is like In the Line of Fire. I've never seen that. There's definitely some movies that like I know a lot of people love that I haven't seen of Eastwood. So you're right. Maybe now is a time to kind of go back and just look at a few of these ones that I didn't. Maybe a lot of the ones he was making in the 90s were off my radar for a while for some reason.
And it's also him being kind of the dying old guard. It's like he's from a completely different old Hollywood era that just doesn't exist anymore. Like a certain type of filmmaker, a certain type of movie star. I mean, he's kind of one of the last of that era. And so I think in the last 10, 15 years, when people are realizing movies are just different now, and that's a time to kind of look back and see what Hollywood was making in the past. And so that's, I think, another reason why people kind of go back to Eastwood and kind of check out the movies he was making. Because again, I'm excited to see it, Juror number 2, but everybody's been saying like this movie doesn't feel like anything else out now, because it's made from somebody who started making movies in the fucking 60s, so it's a different era.
And was a star before that, it's crazy to think that we're still like blessed with Clint Eastwood in the world. It's kind of like how I think about when I know Paul McCartney's still out there making music. I'm like, God damn, man, we're freaking lucky,
Yeah. I mean, talk about kick-ass fucking life. You fucking making movies. He's 93. Like doing anything and working your ass off at 93 is awesome. But then to like be that creative and still doing what you love in your 90s. I mean,
it just awesome, rolls into like the mystique of Clint Eastwood anyway, right? Like the tough motherfucker, like. Of course, he's still making films. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if he was dead and still making films, like it's just because he's just such a badass. Like that's what you want, from a character like he's become his own character in a way. And then when he started directing, it was like everybody talking about Eastwood and sort of his style, and that how he was very quiet about it, which you didn't really expect from him. He'd just be like, and here we go, instead of saying like action or whatever, he just kind of like rolled into it. And again, I'm sure that's something that he learned from the masters, that he worked with.
And that's such like a good, to tie back to Perfect World, that's like such a good way to put his vibe and his energy. It's like he did Unforgiven. He made the movie. Like I would say certainly the movie he's going to be most known for, like in his legacy, like definitely one of his best, most popular, most defining. And so in the midst of all that, getting all the awards, he just rolls into A Perfect World, where it's like this really nuanced portrayal of masculinity, not doing anything at all what people expect, and coming out with like something so different than most of his other movies. And like I said, I think one of his best. So
and again, who better to tell a story about masculinity than the guy who's like the poster child of it back in the day, for being the man with no name. I wondered, like, is that something that drew you to this film? Like the fact that it's not shying away from talking about like how broken you can be without a father figure in your life and stuff. Is that something that you really like about this?
Well, like I said, it was just on HBO as a kid, so that was the biggest part. Like you were just watching it because it was on, and so those are the movies that are partly nostalgic.
You liked it.
For sure. I love that. Like I said, road trip movie, but then the connection. I mean, it is just the connection between Butch and Buzz and their bond and their friendship and his I mean, mentoring is kind of a strong word, but like he's showing a strong.
I mean, he is though.
He is, but he's. I mean, not consciously. I mean, it's not. He's teaching Buzz how to be a man's man. Is his guy's guide to a man's man. So
well, and he's also kind of like, okay, he's mentoring him, but then he also gets pissed off when he breaks up like his rendezvous with the waitress. And no,
then, he doesn't.
Well, he does when he first walks out. He's like, get in the car, Buzz. He's like, get in the car, Buzz. Well, yes,
I think I think it's an important scene because of how much he doesn't really get mad at him. Yeah, he's like, all right, well,
he doesn't, but at first he's angry about it. I'm telling you, he walks out of there and he's like, Buzz, get in the car. He tells him, and then when they get in the car, it's like a father-son thing where he's telling him about the birds and the bees, and he's like, it's complicated, and then he's like, well, you were kissing her butt or whatever. He's like, do you love her? He's like, of course I love her. I was kissing her butt, wasn't I? And that's when it became fun. But at first, he was mad.
I mean, okay, yeah, slightly annoyed, I'd say, but again, it really is his gentle interactions with Buzz at all levels. Like at no point is he scaring Buzz except for the end when he can't control his own anger towards the abusive father. So
I'll agree with
every other time. I mean, I think that's just so important to the characters that like he keeps his cool in front of the kid.
Right. I wouldn't say he was angry, but he was definitely like pissed off or like, perturbed that he couldn't
for sure.
score.
I mean, a normal human interaction to getting cock blocked by a kid for sure. I'll give you that. So.
Or maybe that's just like him experiencing what it's like to be a father for the first time when your kid walks into the room,
Exactly. He definitely, you see him, he talked to Philip like an adult. Like I said, he gives him autonomy. He's like certainly going to like talk him through stuff that he's not aware of, but he treats him like an adult. But then you're right. Like it's him being around a kid, especially a kid that he sees himself as like the potential going down the same road. It's like he sees himself in Philip was like, he doesn't have a father. He could potentially go through all the same shit that I went through. That's why he's like naturally protective of him. But then you're right, like walking around, actually physically having to take care of a kid, that's certainly something that he was never doing before. And also why he goes off every time he sees a father they come across, including the farming family. He sees him abusing his own child, the farmer family that's helping him out. And that's what sets Butch off at the end. So,
okay. So that's like such a, so this could roll into the end scene, which I think, we should talk about, as we finish up our conversation, but the way that Eastwood directs this and that you see how much it bothers both characters. Buzz what's his real name again? The kid.
Philip.
Sorry, Philip. And they call him Buzz to try to conceal his name, but Philip and Butch are both, Eastwood does a great job of showing how both of them are affected when they see other fathers or mothers. And the mother aspect of it is shown in the car when they steal that guy's car and the mother like slaps around the kids in the back. It's almost like parents in general,
Yeah.
And then but that obviously that scene was to show Philip's side of it and what he's seen, because as he's only raised by his mother, he doesn't have a father to slap him around, for lack of a, but that's it really. And then, you see it with the father figure in the later scenes when they are, what a way to turn it. Cause it's so sweet. They're being saved basically by this, African-American family who, is just like, they don't have much, but they're going to offer up their bed and everything for these two to sleep for the night. They don't know that they're convicts or that he's on the run. But when that happens, that turns a lot around, because Costner starts to see that this guy is slapping around his kid every once in a while, and it's really bugging him. But he's trying to make the best of it. He doesn't really do anything, and he's even like dancing, putting on records, and it's seemingly a really nice time until it's not.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, you see that the farmer is hearing on the radio that the convict, and so that's basically what forces Butch to cut off anything that they're going to be doing. And then, he just keeps on. He almost is like, it's almost like an outer body experience, like kind of like meditation, like the no self. It's like he's realizing that, like, I just have to, like, take this father out because of the abuse that he's given his own child. It's like he knows, like, he shouldn't do it. He knows that it's going to jeopardize Philip's safety as well, and yet he just keeps on moving forward with it because of his own experience and past, and I don't know. Yeah,
but it moves into a scene that I think is like so. To the audience out there, we're explaining the scene now where Kevin Costner's character is really, as Pat just said, upset, and it's really kind of scary because he's in front of all these kids. I think his name is Cleve, which is the son of the other family. And then Philip's in the room too. And he's tying them up. He's duct taping them. And it's like classic, like he's going to kill at least the father, but we don't know about the other two. He might as well. And he's telling them to close their eyes. I really don't know. Yeah. I was going to say at that time, I don't know though, like, cause he really turned on a switch
because he's doing it out of protection, even though it's like, he's using violence against violence for sure. I
didn't really see it that way. I saw it as like, he's just a no good son of a bitch, but that's what's playing out because he says, I see you're a good man. The woman is saying to him, and he's like, I'm somewhere in between. I'm not a good man, but I'm not a bad man either.
I ain't a good man, but I ain't the worst either, which is like the defining line of the movie for sure. And
but you still don't know if he's going to kill him, in my opinion. It's getting pretty scary. And there's a lot of times you think he might walk away, but then he kind of comes back. And then we get to
kill the father or kill the family. I don't think any scenario would he ever harm the family.
Well, I don't know. It seemed very volatile in my opinion, because like as soon as he starts duct taping them, I'm not sure if he's duct taping them so that they'll be quiet and stop talking about, because they're talking and saying prayers. Yeah. And he doesn't want to hear that. And I don't know if that religion really comes into this film too much, I mean, it obviously does with the Jehovah's Witness stuff, but I don't know about Kevin Costner's past, if he has like a problem with religion or anything, but it really bothers him that they're saying prayers. And I don't know if that's like, he wants to shut them up so he can actually go through and kill. But later on, we find out that he says straight up to Philip, I don't know if I was actually going to kill them anyway. See, I don't know the whole time if he even knows what he was going to do.
No, I definitely agree with that. But I would stand by that the character would not harm the family, and he was just I shouldn't say just, but he's definitely acting out his own anger towards his own father by wanting to kill that father. So I definitely see it as that, and not really letting the violence go beyond that.
You as the audience can let us know what you thought, because I think this is where we differ just a little bit on this character, because I thought at that point he was really unhinged, and I wasn't sure exactly what he was going to do. I understand where you're coming from and why you would say
it's possible.
Why he was being protective in general, like that makes a lot of sense to me. But at the same time, I still thought like, oh, this is where we're seeing like the convict. This is where we're seeing the guy who was put behind bars, because you don't really get too much of that, and except at the beginning and a few times like nods to it when he kills the guy he went to prison, and he had no problem killing that guy. But you're right, at that time it was about protection too. He knew that guy was going to harm Philip, and even in the scene in the beginning, you weren't even sure if he was going to like sexually molest him or not. It was really a strange scene where he was like, let me see your pecker and stuff like that.
I think they cut it off right before it gets to it, but that partner was definitely going to do something with the kid. And so, thankfully Butch was there for that. And again, it all goes into the moral ambiguity of it. There's not good people can be bad and bad people can be good. And that's why I like the nuance of that throughout this whole movie on both sides. I mean, you got the fucking assholes who are on the ostensibly good side of the FBI trying to save the boy. So,
right. And this is the exact same thing you were talking about, why I said like this has a lot of differences, but a lot of similarities to Unforgiven, because that's the same deal with Unforgiven.
Yeah. Hell yeah.
That moral ambiguity, as you mentioned.
Yeah. And again, like that, the way though that it's just so expertly crafted. Obviously, we know Eastwood's an amazing director, but like to having these subjects, I think a lot of times it's a little bit more black or white. Because this movie doesn't get political by any means, but it does have a lot of character morality in it, of like what's right and what's wrong. And it's just done in like such a nuanced way. Like I said, I think that's why it's one that's going to keep on gaining an audience over time, because it's so effortlessly cool, just like Costner's main character.
Well, as we move into
prone to violence, so
I mean, as we move into effortlessly cool characters, even Eastwood, you can't help but think this guy's cool. He's always so well reserved, and in Unforgiven too. Like he just kind of holds back and he just says what he needs to. He's such a badass and so cool.
Looks like he's made of leather, so it's just that just adds to the.
I like that they added a little bit of red to his hair for this too, so that he could look like the namesake. But as we move into,
I didn't notice that.
There's a little bit, yeah. I figured that's why they call him red, out. But I wasn't sure.
I like that.
But I wanted to say, like, the real coming of a man moment happens when Philip shoots Butch. So to stop this torturing the family, he goes to look for his gun. Butch, as he's like, again, you're not sure if he's going to kill this guy, and the gun is gone, and Philip has it, and he ends up shooting Butch, which was, as I said earlier, a shocker to me. But as I said, when I knew the gun was gone, I knew that's how it was going to end. But I didn't know it until that time that he was going to shoot him. And even in that's when Butch is like, it snaps him out of it. Yeah, it snaps him out of it.
He says directly to him while he's sitting under the tree bleeding out. He's like, he probably did the right thing. So,
right. And in a way, it's like the perfect way to end this, because he's going to get caught anyway. They were never going to really make it out. The law always finds you. The law is always going to win.
And the end scene. So
let's go into it.
He gets shot. They go out into a field, and Clint Eastwood catches up with them, the whole team. So they basically have him out. They assuming it's like a hostage situation, like where some people are still assuming that, like basically everybody but Clint Eastwood and Laura Dern assume that he's going to hurt the boy, when the two realize that he wouldn't do that. And so it's a pretty long drawn out scene where like he's having those conversations with Philip, and he's reconnecting with him. Obviously Philip was like super scared when he had to shoot him, but then realizing that like Butch is not going to hurt him at all. They reconnect and are talking about the Alaskan postcard, his postcard that Butch got from his own father, assuming that that's where they were going to meet up again. So that's kind of the piece that connects them. And finally we get the scene where Clint Eastwood is walking up to Kevin Costner. Throughout the whole movie, they haven't like been on the screen at all or interacted with each other. And it's like such a monumental moment, like emotionally, I think, because like you just have these two characters, like you said, do I know you? And Red knows that he knows him, but Kevin Costner doesn't know that. So it just has such a huge impact, like while you're watching them actually come face to face with each other for the first time.
And such a great way to write out the characters. So as he's shot already, you're like, maybe this wound could be fixable if they catch him and bring him back, and then he'll live, and then Philip and him could have some sort of relationship maybe. But that's not a good movie. At the end, that he's got to die. So the shithole ass like FBI agent actually shoots him, even though Costner says, not until. And then of course you get that amazing moment where he punches him in the face at the end. So you just fucking love it.
Well, he's pulling for the postcard, and Bradley Whitford shoots Kevin Costner, and both Clint Eastwood and Laura Dern are not happy with that, understandably so.
Right, and but again, makes for a good movie, and
it definitely had to end that way.
Yes.
Again, like this is still like a man that took a boy hostage, and so like any logical movie kind of does have to end like that, at least in
the other thing is
Hollywood way. So
Yeah, well, and also to sum up the story of the father figure, he's making sure that in the last moments of his life, what he can do, because like, what can you do? You're going to get caught or you're going to get killed, and like, it's over for you, basically. He knows it.
Yeah.
But he's playing around a little bit with the cops, and he's also playing around a little bit with Philip. Like, he's like, could still get away. But really, he's just buying time to get Philip what he wants, like, well, or
That's
what,
yeah.
or what Philip could have, and not what he wants. No, I don't even know if Philip really knows that he wants that. I just know he yearns to have more freedom to go trick.
Yeah, but that's what the guidance is like,
right.
he's teaching Philip that like all these things that you've been denied. You never had a Christmas, you never had a Christmas present, you never got to go trick or treating, you never been on a roller coaster, which are all the things that Butch gave him. Again, children need the reassurance, and they need people to open the world for them. And otherwise, they can go off in many different ways, but they need those things. And that's what Butch is providing for him. And you're right. He's like basically giving the demands. My demands for this situation are that you take this child out trick-or-treating, take him on a roller coaster, and he gets to do the things that he wants to do to experience the freedom that every child deserves. So. And
beautifully written, and that last scene with him in the helicopter, and you see kind of like Butch's eyes open just a little bit to see him, and you're like, oh, okay, he knows he's getting the ride that he wanted. He's in the helicopter. He's like, do you think this will end with me like flying away in that helicopter? And of course that's how the movie ends, but Butch gets to, I think, see it just a little bit one last time.
Yeah.
And that's the end of the film. And scene.
I love that. I mean, going back obviously to like the way he wants Philip to have the experiences that all children deserve. It's like he basically makes him halfway through the film, he makes him write out all the things you want to do that you haven't been able to do. And so he starts writing, and he just looks up at Butch. It's like, how do you spell spaceship or rocket ship? How do you spell rocket ship? So it's just like he's obviously allowing himself to be hopeful kind of as a child for the first time.
Do you think that Butch I think got to have whatever he wanted in his later life because he was a criminal and he just took it or did it himself without any kind of regard for authority? So he could have had cotton candy if he wanted, he could have had that. But do you think that Butch had that in his younger life growing up?
Wait a minute,
or was he held back like from what like he could have had, or like a regular childhood?
He was 100%. That's like, I think that's the crux of the character, is that he had the abusive father, and then Red coming in and giving. So he had the abusive father. He stole the car basically as a teenager to escape, and that's what got him busted. And then he got the extended prison sentence from Clint Eastwood, which is kind of the catalyst of like all the reasoning of like why, like, oh, this is not somebody who's going to harm a child at all, but he's still a criminal who's been in jail. I think that's the entire like point, is that he didn't have any of that. So
no, right. And I understand all of that. But what I'm saying is like what they don't really talk about is like those things that he says, like cotton candy or, going on roller coasters and stuff like that. Okay. Do you think it's applied that he never had any of that in his childhood?
No, I mean, his enthusiasm for those things,
right?
The way he's like explaining to Philip,
like you have to have those things.
This is your God-given right as a red, white, and blue American to enjoy cotton candy and roller coasters whenever you want. So, yeah, I mean, I guess that's a good way to look at it. I didn't think about that as like, him being a criminal. Not that that's like any extravagant lifestyle, but like as the character, he was doing what he wanted to do as an adult.
Yeah, but he understood, like, somehow in there, I think he understood like the depravity of a childhood, whether it was cotton candy or roller coasters. It could have been something else to him. He just related to him, I guess. So that's all that really matters.
Well, I mean, yeah, he probably didn't have a lot of that as a child. I wouldn't guess that. And again, that's why he sees himself so much in Philip. He's like, I'm going to make sure that you get to experience all the stuff that you deserve. And make that the priority. So, which is again, just like that's like the heart of the film, and like why it works so well. It's like their relationship, like all those scenes. It's like one of the few criticisms I saw of this movie is that it's a little too long, and being such a focus of their bond, and being such a great performance by Kevin Costner. It's like I definitely disagree with that. Like, I would almost like want this movie to be longer because I would just be more time with these two characters. And it's just, that's, again, it's always the character study movies that I always like the most. Anything that was like, that's led by a strong lead performance, and like kind of that's the focus of it. I mean, I was thinking of basically any Alexander Payne movie. First Reformed with Ethan Hawke, Slight. I mean, these are all any movie, The Wrestler, anything that's just really like is led by a strong performance, like that digs deep into a character. Like that's the stuff I could just watch endlessly.
Yeah, totally. I think those are. Except for The Wrestler, I think we covered First Reformed, Paul Schrader, right?
Yep. Absolutely love it.
Yeah, I've been loving Ethan Hawke. I just watched Reality Bites for the first time. Sorry, do we want to pivot? Are we finished? I don't want to cut it off before.
Well, yeah, we'll definitely get in. I got a couple other movies to watch this week, so that I want to get into. So yeah, like, I mean, just what the movies were like. This opened in November '93. I looked it up, and Jurassic Park, which had come out in like June or July, was still number 13 in the box office.
Yeah, probably still fucking soaring high, man.
And I remember looking it up. Jurassic Park opened in like June of '93 and was still like in theaters in the top box office in like the following April. It's just such another world that we live in now, where it's like movies basically open up in the theater and on demand at the same time.
Yeah.
Whereas back then, you had basically Jurassic Park at the theater was the only way you could see it for like a year and a half until it came out on VHS after that. So just such another world. But this you could have been. So if you went to the theater this weekend that The Perfect World came out, you could have watched Mrs. Doubtfire, which is number one. Adam's Family.
Fuck out of here.
So if you went to the theater the weekend that A Perfect World opened, you could have watched Mrs. Doubtfire, Adam's Family Values, which is one of my favorite comedies of the '90s, one of the best ensemble comedies of all time. Jurassic Park, Cool Runnings, and A Nightmare Before Christmas. These were all
the fuck out of here
at the theater if you went on this weekend. So
what do you choose?
Perfect World, so.
I mean, A Perfect World, I think, would be the last thing you'd choose, but it still did.
That's why it probably did the worst out of all of those that I just mentioned. But
well, as you say, the '90s is such a great time for film. You know, wow,
right.
That's amazing. What quality, you know?
Ugh, love it. What else? Any closing thoughts? I mentioned Spielberg was going to possibly direct this. Yeah, like I said, it's probably my favorite Kevin Costner performance. Probably a top 5 Clint Eastwood movie in general for me. And yeah, I'm just happy it's one that more people are discovering lately. So
okay, if we had to pit it against the movie we covered last week, Unforgiven, where does it stand in between that and the ranking?
Oh, I don't pit movies against each other. There's no.
Well, you don't have to pit it against each other, but if you had to pick one or the other to watch.
To watch, it probably would be A Perfect World. But
okay.
I could definitely see the expert craftsman and Unforgiven being far more iconic. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, both movies are great, but yeah.
That's why we're doing double features. That's why we have double features, so you get both. So
of course, but I think you and I, the only reason that we would choose one over the other is just for the sheer amount of times that we watched it in our youth. I watched Unforgiven all the time.
For sure,
you watch this movie all the time, so it's like, those are our go-tos, you know. But they're both great movies.
Yeah, I think that's the nostalgia definitely plays a little bit into it. I can recognize Unforgiven as just an expertly crafted movie by far. It's like perfect when it comes to that. But like I said,
and it's like right up his alley with like it being a Western, you know, all that.
Yeah, for sure. I often think of, I mean, there's a lot of Clint Eastwood I haven't seen. So, you know, that's what happens when you kick ass for 60 years.
No shit. Well, I'm sure we'll be digging up a lot more Eastwood films as we go on here with remainders. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this episode recap on Perfect World. And then if you wanted to hear Unforgiven, you can get back to the last one before this where we cover Unforgiven. Both movies I'd say that I loved and that I would recommend. I'm sure Pat would say the same thing. It's been a while since we've covered anything where I'm like, no, don't go see that. Usually I'm pretty happy with the picks that we have. So
that's what we're doing here. We're lifting up the movies that need lifting up.
I mean, Under the Silver Lake, I kind of didn't like, but I have to revisit it because everybody else in the world loves that fucking movie.
It's one I hope you'll come around on. I mean, it's okay if you don't, but it is such a good noir. Yeah, I mean, out of all the movies we covered, if that's the one you keep on bringing up, which is fine, but that means that there aren't a lot of ones that you've been unimpressed with. So,
yeah, I've kind of enjoyed them all. I mean, there's a lot to like about everything. There's not one where I was like, man, I got to turn this off or I can't even get through it. It's like there's always like some substance. Well, let's just say that like I would to be good conversation between the two of us.
Yeah, I would still the whole point of that. If that episode does happen, which, that's definitely possible, it would be just me showing what I get out of it and you showing what you didn't get out of it, which is more than enough valid conversation for it. So,
yeah, which is the best part about life is to discuss art and find out new things about it that you might not have seen through your eyes and somebody else could open it up to you.
Amen to that, brother.
Speaking of I just want to say quickly, so watching two movies lately on Criterion, they had that Winona Ryder retrospective, and I had never seen Reality Bites before. We don't have to go into it because we can cover it one time if we want to. But I didn't realize Ben Stiller directed that. I always had the soundtrack to that back in the day where it had all these like Pearl Jam songs, and it was like, oh, I knew about that. Oh no, wait. That was I think a different movie. But anyway, long story short, it is full of like different songs. It's Ethan Hawke looking cool.
The single soundtrack was.
You're right. That's the single soundtrack. That's exactly it. Yeah, that's what I'm thinking of. But anyway, I had never seen it. Winona at her like most badass, most beautiful killer. Like she's just like the best 90s icon in it. And I really liked it. And then I watched another movie called An Experiment in Terror, which was absolutely terrifying. And it was just like about a movie that like a guy kind of comes in and just like terrorizes a woman to help him steal money from the bank that she works at. And
well, I just looked it up, and my boy Glenn Ford is in it. So
an older Glenn Ford, and he's really good. Really good. This is like 60s. So Gilda was I think 40s, and it's an older Glenn Ford, and he's really good in it. God, I just went to the Hollywood Museum the other day. I go there every once in a while. I know I've sent you pictures all the time of all the Jason Voorhees stuff because they changed it around. So they had Jason Voorhees
Part 4 Machete. I was very jealous. If you're a huge Friday the 13th fan, you know how valuable that Part 4 Machete is. So I was very jealous of that. Right? That's awesome.
They also had some Dances with Wolves stuff in the same like case next to it. Speaking of Costner, but anyway, what I was saying is, what was I talking about before that?
Experiment in Terror. 1962.
Right. Oh, Gilda. So they had a bunch of the jewelry that Rita Hayworth wears and on display.
Oh yeah.
Love that shit, man. That's like so iconic. It's like that was screen worn. It's like you just think about them. Wow, like this was around the neck of that star, and like she was there making a film that would go on to be so iconic and so legendary. The dress that she wore in Put the Blame on Mame was actually on display at the Chinese theater over here, and I got to see that in person. It was like, wow, I don't know. I'm such a big fan of that stuff. So what have you been watching these days?
What have I been watching? So the best thing I watched was, I got it over here. Yeah, I had that box set that I bought, the Martin Scorsese Films of Faith box set.
Oh, right.
The Passion of Christ, Kundun, and Silence. And I watched all three, and I had never seen Kundun before. Definitely a favorite movie that I've watched. One of my favorites that I've watched all year. Like, I was blown away by how much I love that movie. I feel like it's one that I would not have appreciated it when it came out. I think it was 97. So I probably would not have been down with watching it. I mean, I was definitely riding high on Goodfellas and Casino at the time.
A way different movie from all that stuff, you know? It's
Right.
like a departure for him.
Yeah. And so I can appreciate that by far now, but like as a child, that's probably why I just didn't check it out. And
probably for most people, I don't think it did very well for him. But
yeah, I mean, it's a completely different movie. It's totally meditation on Buddhism. And I was just blown away by it. Like, it is such a great fucking movie. It was a style to it that, so Philip Glass does the score. Have you seen it?
No. So here's an interesting thing. I took a class on Martin Scorsese called The Films of Martin Scorsese in College of DuPage. And like, we watched Boxcar Bertha, some, you know, his early films. Yeah. And then Kundun was on the list. And
you skipped class.
I skipped that class. No joke.
Not on purpose, or was it on purpose, or you just had band practice? Probably so.
No, yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
like, I just didn't go, and I didn't watch. Maybe I didn't go because I didn't watch the film. I think it was one of those things where like you watch the film outside of it. Anyway, but yeah, so I haven't seen it, and I know the teacher was huge. Marco Benassi was his name, and he loved Kundun. He was like, this is the best Scorsese film. So it's interesting to hear you talk about it.
So, yeah, I mean, I was just blown away. So, I mean, I'm, you know, I certainly don't consider myself a Buddhist, but it's by far the religion I would pick if I had to pick one. I like.
I started reading that book you lent me, by the way, too.
Oh, yeah, I give you that one. Yeah. Why Buddhism is True by Robert Wright.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Great book. Awesome. So that's a Western, straight up American take on Eastern philosophy. So that's why that one's pretty unique, because it's kind of like in the vein of Alan Watts, where it's like, it's a Western perspective on Eastern philosophy. But Kundun is shot in a way. So like I said, Philip Glass does the score. And are you familiar with the documentary Koya no Skatsi?
No.
The 1982 documentary. It's just a straight up documentary on humanity, like no words or anything. It's just showing life, like old life on Earth, the Earth itself, animals, and then seeing humans come in and just them being at work. There's nobody talking. It's just shots, and it's entirely a shot with a score by Philip Glass. So you're really just watching the images and listening to Philip Glass and his amazing score.
No, sounds fucking amazing. I mean, you know, I'm a huge fan of Philip Glass's Dracula score. We used that little clip at the beginning of Tijeras. So,
ooh, you're right. I think I just heard that one a couple months ago when I was playing all the old scissor stuff before the show. So
yeah, I mean, Philip Glass is amazing. Yeah. That sounds great.
His Candyman score is the one that always sticks out with me. But the documentary, and I'm looking at the pronunciation right now. So it's Koya no Skatsi. And it's just, I had to look it up to actually see how it's pronounced. It is a cool documentary. But yeah, if you like Philip Glass and his score, again, that's kind of the focal point of it. And so I almost feel like Kundun was influenced by that movie specifically, because there are long sequences in Kundun where it's just Philip Glass's score. Nobody's talking. It's just showing the shots, kind of not fast editing like a Scorsese Goodfellas movie or anything, but it does kind of like jump around without dialogue, but while the score is overlapping. So for long periods of that. So I think that's really what I love the most about it, and what I just responded so well. And again, like I said, being somebody who's prone to Buddhism and I've been meditating for like 20 years, it is like a Eastern philosophy that I can appreciate much more now than if I had watched it when it actually came out. I certainly wouldn't have gotten nearly as much out of it as I would have back then. So
I have to check it out. Like I said, it's one of those ones that's been on my list for a long time because of the story that I just told you.
Yeah. So yeah, I was very happy to enjoy that one. So yeah, it's been a pretty fun movie with a pretty fun week with movies between Kundun and Perfect World. So
I'm trying to get out and find time. It's been hard. As per usual, I'm just super slammed right now, but Heretic is playing at Vista, and I very much want to go see that. Have you seen Heretic yet?
is that the Hugh Grant one?
Yeah.
No, but I want to. I fucking love Hugh Grant. So.
Yeah, like A24 film, and I guess he plays. It's like a horror movie, so that's like a role I've never seen Hugh Grant in before.
So I loved seeing a picture of him reunite with Nicholas Hoult, who's in Juror number 2, Clint Eastwood's movie, because they were in that movie I like a lot. I haven't seen it in years, but About a Boy. I don't know if you remember that one.
Yeah,
it was Hugh Grant and Nicholas Hoult when he was just like maybe 12 years old. I remember liking that movie a lot. I saw a picture of them reuniting just recently on the red carpet somewhere. So it was awesome to see that.
Also, by the way, just watched with my girlfriend a movie that I used to watch all the time as a kid. And it was funny when I was watching, I was like, why did I watch this all the time as a kid? I don't know. Maybe my parents had the VHS or something. But fucking Racing Arizona. I hadn't seen it in forever. And man, Nicolas Cage, he's like 23 years old in that. And
is he only 23? Jesus Christ.
Off his ass. I mean, insanely good. And it's a different Nicolas Cage, but the same. It's weird. It's like, when you see him and everyone's like, he's eccentric and he's weird. It's like, that guy was always different. He was always.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah.
Yeah.
But he's so wholesome in that movie too. So he's eccentric and he's very, the character hard to describe.
Played that. Yeah, you're right. The character's played like he's obviously like a convict and everything, but he's sweet, know? Yeah. So that was cool.
Talk about effortlessly cool. He's kind of the epitome of that. So
yeah, it's been a Coen Brothers resurgence over here in this household. So that's what we've been watching.
Well, I definitely want to cover A Serious Man at some point because that's
haven't seen yet, but that's on the list. Criterion's got it on there. 2009, right?
Fucking great. It's like that's. I mean, they keep on crushing it. I mean, the later ones I like almost as much as their earlier films, and A Serious Man is like way up there with it. So
yeah,
the movie again, talk about like deep character study. That I love that one. So.
Cool. Yeah, I love that actor too. He was in Boardwalk Empire and a bunch of other stuff.
Oh, he's so great. Yeah. Call Me by Your Name.
Yeah.
I'm almost done with Walking Dead finally. I can't believe how fucking long this show is. I didn't realize there's this many seasons. Like I said, I treat it like a soap opera, but I'm almost done with the original show. So
liking it. Yeah.
I'm still watching it. Like I said, I think that's why a lot of people don't like it is because it turned into a soap opera where it's just this never ending story. It can go on forever and it is going to go on forever. It's like all the spin-off shows,
right?
They're just going to keep on making it. Whereas like it could have gone into like a finite season, the best shows, Succession, Breaking Bad, they're all finite. They know that it's just a story to tell and then you end it, where it's like Walking Dead was like, no, we're not doing that. We're going to keep on going and focus on the characters forever.
The zombies are making money,
Right. Yeah, you're right. That's obviously the impetus for it, but like it's just not going for that finite type of storytelling, and totally understandably, that's why a lot of people are not down with like the rest of the Walking Dead series. But I'm still enjoying it quite a bit.
I have not watched, I think the last season, but I watched all of them pretty religiously when they were on TV. So.
I mean, I'd be down to check out the Daryl Dixon show. I know some people have been liking that one, so see how it is if I keep on going with it. But
fan favorite, that guy.
Last thing I want to talk about, I didn't even really know this was going on, but Mike Tyson fought Logan Paul, Jake Paul. Okay, so I don't follow this at all. So, but it was a pretty big deal, and I learned about it afterwards, and I realized it's the exact plot of Rocky VI, and I love it for that. So I was like, so I was talking to at work with somebody about it, and I'm like, this is basically Rocky Balboa, which is one of my favorite Rocky movies. So,
Oh yeah, I love Rocky Balboa, but yeah, you're absolutely right. Mason the Dixon line.
that's right.
Yeah.
Oh, so good. So I was happy to, art imitating life, life imitating art. You know,
I know there's like memes going around like Nintendo predicted this, and there's like from the Mike Tyson's Punch Out, like him fighting like a little like the scrawny white guy.
Yeah, the redhead guy.
Yeah. I did watch that, and it was fun. You know, like it was like in my mind, it was like, how can I not watch this? Like Mike Tyson boxing again. You know, I don't really know anything about the Paul brothers other than that.
So those two names I named off, they're brothers?
Yeah, Jake and Logan are brothers. They're like, I think pretty much got famous from, you know, social media and grown into this sort of boxing career.
Influencers.
Yeah, I don't know, you know, whatever. But yeah, yes, so something like that. But now they're kind of cocky, you know, and so they're like, you know, they're like people love to hate them, just like, you know, the Kardashians,
just like a Rocky movie.
Yeah, well, yeah, you know, the public can't get enough of throwing their money and their time at people that they love to hate. So that, I mean, both of those guys made a ton of money. Everybody tuned in, but I watched it and it was fine. You know, I got super drunk. And that was like the best part about it, because I worked really hard last week and I didn't have a goddamn thing to drink. I was really sick for a while. And that night I went with my girlfriend. We got some pizza and some booze, and I got drunk and watched that fight. And yeah, that's all it needed to be, you know.
You're making too many people jealous right now with your kick-ass life. So,
yeah. Well, I'm not gonna lie, it is kick-ass at times, and at other times, it's.
I was being fully sincere, but I know your life kicks ass.
No, thank you, man. Well, yours too. I mean, this podcast is 4 years strong now, so we have that to put a feather in our cool cap, I'd say.
Ugh, love it.
Speaking of cool, what are you listening to these days? You want to do your song of the week?
No, you go first.
Well, I'm going to go first because I'll tell you why. Are you going to fucking throw the Cure on here every chance you get? Wait a minute. I have only put one Cure song on, and that was because of their first album in 16 years, which is... that's the only Cure song. I could have sworn you put a different Cure song on there when you were.
Oh wait, no. You're right.
Yeah,
Wish. You're right. I did put that on there. So there's two Cure songs. Okay, so two songs from the greatest band of all time is not that much, to be honest.
Well, listen, I like those tunes, and I like that you like the Cure, but you know that I love Morrissey, and so like I'm like, you know, I put a Smith song, I think, on our list, but I'd never put a Morrissey official. And I figured if you out there, you know, want a little introduction into Morrissey solo, which I think is better than the Smiths. That's not a popular opinion, but nothing that about Morrissey is a popular opinion.
Well, yeah, I think people just dislike him as a person. I think even the people who like the Smiths can still appreciate the talent for his albums, his solo albums.
Yeah.
I think it's people just not liking when he opens his mouth as a person.
Right. Which I love it. I was like, again, like I think let him do whatever he wants.
Although I will say that's where the Cure comes off as the winner, because Robert Smith is a god, and he's been always been a god. But his biggest thing lately has been fighting against Ticketmaster and the price gouging and keeping concert tickets prices down. So he definitely wins in that respect. I'll give you, I think you'll have to admit that. So
yeah, for sure. He's the new Pearl Jam for this new generation.
Pearl Jam, which is, it could be the Cure. So,
well, I'm just talking about like the fighting of Ticketmaster.
I know.
So I'm one of my favorite Morrissey solo records, for anybody out there that's made it this far and is listening still. And for you, Pat, is a record called Vauxhall and I. And it's apropos because I believe this record came out in 94. So if you're familiar with any songs of Morrissey's solo, you're probably familiar with The More You Ignore Me, The Closer I Get, which is a big single for him in 94. Yeah, 1994. But that record in general is filled with great songs. And one of my favorites on there is a song called Hold On to Your Friends. So that's going to be my pick of the week. But also, Why Don't You Find Out for Yourself? I'm Hated for Loving, Lifeguard Sleeping, Girl Drowning, Used to Be a Sweet Boy, Lazy Sunbathers, Speedway are all excellent songs off this record. And I would say to anybody, just give it a listen. It's Morrissey really, I think, finally coming into that sweet spot in his solo career.
What's the name of the song again?
Hold On to Your Friends.
Hold On to Your Friends. That's a sweet message.
There's an amazing lyric in there. It's like, you only call me when you're feeling depressed. When you feel happy, I'm so far from your mind. It's like beautiful. And then there's a song called Why Don't You Find Out Yourself? It's like, there's a lyric that's like, some men here, they know the full extent of your career. They want to help you to grow and then siphon all your dough. There's also like another line that I love. It's like, they kneel and pray and they say, long may it last, about like your like strife. It's really, it's probably a very personal record, but like, I just love that he's calling out he's as honest as you get. I don't care what people say. And again, I love the mantra of Morrissey.
He definitely says what he's thinking. I'll give you that for sure.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, it's fun because it's like, again, I'm putting this on here because I know how much you love The Cure, and I feel like you feel the exact same way about Robert Smith as I do about Morrissey. Like, I'm just a big fan, you know?
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, for me, it's Robert Smith and Bob Dylan. Those are the two gods of music, besides TLB, of course. So.
Yeah, exactly.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to check that out. As you said, this was from the early 90s.
1994. So
Vauxhall.
Year-ish as The Perfect World.
The 90s, I mean, they're just the best decade. I mean, I
didn't really realize until we did this podcast how much the 90s do kick ass.
No, I was literally about to say the same thing. It's like, I mean, we're biased, obviously, because of our age.
Yeah, we grew up, but
the 90s is kind of a very unique time in history and art, just in terms of, because it is, for film at least, speaking of just film, is like, it really is like 70s part 2, where it was like the resurgence of, I mean, the 70s was like the first time when like the auteur started and the individuals were like making their movies and like what they wanted to put on screen. And the 90s was kind of part 2 of that, but it was even like kind of better because like there was just more technological capabilities, more artistic freedom. And then at the same time, you had the technological aspect of big budget movie making, and the big studios were actually being influenced by that. And it just led to, I mean, I think it's probably my favorite decade of all time for film. So, but then music, yeah. It's like, again, that's a little bit more subjective, but any decade with Vauxhall in it is great. Can't argue that. So,
all right. So, what's your pick of the week for your music?
Well, I had you go first because I totally forgot to pick a song. So I was.
Oh, okay. So did you pick one off the cuff or?
Yeah, I was just looking through my Spotify right now and what I've been listening to, and I'll go with. So yeah, like I had a lot of. I was listening. I'm still listening to the new Nick Cave and Cure albums.
Oh yes,
for sure. So that was taking up a lot of my time. But another band with a new album that came out was Amyl and the Sniffers. And
I don't know them.
Their third album, I think it's their third album. They've only had a couple since I think 2019 was maybe their first full-length album. Punkish, garage rock, female lead singer, very raunchy, very fun band. Certainly nothing too deep, but they definitely know how to have fun and rock and roll. So Cartoon Darkness is their new album. It just came out in the last month. And the opening track, Jerkin, is a very fun song. Very lewd, very crass, women talking
Sounds
about
like it.
jerking off. And so it's just a fun rock and roll track that I've been enjoying. The whole album kicks ass, but it's been the counter programming to the Cure album, Songs of a Lost World, which is definitely on their darker side, which is, again, why the Cure is the greatest, because they can do the dark and the light and the funky. But this album is very dark. So having Amo and the Sniffers and their rock and roll has been a nice companion piece to that this last weekend. So
Very cool.
They'll be playing Salt Shed coming up here in Chicago in the spring. So might have to check.
Cool. You gonna get tickets to go see them there? Yeah,
possibly. Tickets are actually decently priced. So I've been pulling back on concerts a little bit. Speaking of Robert Smith talking about the price gouging, the amount of expensive concerts that have been going around has been leading me to not go to as many as I used to. But this one's
I just saw Rex Orange County here and at the Orpheum Theater, and grateful because I got some free tickets to that through a friend that works for him. But I couldn't believe how expensive they were. I was like, I think they were like $140 a piece.
Yeah.
I was like, holy moly,
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, everything in the world has gone up, but
right.
Entertainment and stuff like that, that's the stuff that's like just exploded just in terms of percentage wise. It's like, it's so much more expensive to go to a concert than it used to. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to come to town at some point and play a $5 show again for you. So, I mean, if it's up to me, it'll be a $5 show.
As long as you give me a concert flyer with Marty McFly on it and showing the $5, that's all.
Yeah.
So 2024 and that. So yeah.
That was 2002 prices, but we'll bring it back.
Yeah. Just reprint that price, reprint that poster and just scratch out the date for 2024. So
that was a good one. That was a Back to the Future card that I had. I don't know. I was like, I bought a pack of like, with gum in it and everything, like a baseball card. And I like scanned that and made that a flyer. It's so great.
Ugh.
Well, all right. Well, hey, great episode on A Perfect World. Thanks for mentioning it, because I probably would not have seen this film had it not been for that. And like you said, you can see all of our picks on our feed at our website. All of our links to see you can actually see it on YouTube, where you can see us in the physical form and hear us. But you can also listen on any podcatcher that you have, remainderspod.com. We also have that jukebox of all the songs that we've talked about throughout all of the episodes on Spotify. So you can search that. Remainders Jukebox is what it's called. And yeah, I think that's about it for this time. Please comment, give us a couple ratings, whatever you can do that helps people find the episodes. And we enjoy doing it. So we really appreciate everybody who's made it this far, gone through and listened to any of the episodes. And we hope to hear you and see you. I'm sorry. We hope that you'll join us, I should say, next time, which I'm not sure what movie it's going to be. We'll have to, this time we haven't picked one. I mean, we could keep it going with the Eastwood train, but we'll see. We'll have to see.
Well, it's your pick, buddy. So I'm always excited to hear what you're excited to watch. So
hell yeah. So, all right. Well, great to see you. And we'll talk to you guys again next time.
See you, bud.
Talk to you later. Bye-bye.